Well, Catherine, I'm so excited to have you.
I'm so glad to be here and to be in Alabama. It feels like home,
There you
truly.
go. There you go. It's home
So,
base.
home base, because all of a sudden, EWTN News Nightly appeared, and there was Catherine,
Yeah.
and we were like, where did she come from? Who is this girl? And we didn't know anything about you. But today, you're going to tell our family at home who you are, where you came from, and how you got involved in all of this.
Well, it's a privilege to be here. And working for EWTN, I mean, this is a dream job. I mean, for I think Catholics who are interested in media, this is a dream job. And it all, I always tell people that EWTN was always in the backdrop of my life. I grew up watching Mother Angelica alongside my mother and my grandmother.
Wow.
And maybe about 15 years back, there was this series on EWTN called Onward Pilgrims, and my sister was a member of that. So it was EWTN was always kind of weaved through the fabric of my life. But
You didn't see yourself there. You were just watching, or
yeah,
did you?
I was just. I mean, with Mother Angelica especially, she's fascinating. You hear her and you're like, huh, let me keep listening to this. So it was always comforting to me. Loved EWTN. Never foresaw myself working for the network. I just never could have imagined that. In college, I went to Florida State University, so a little shout out to the Knolls there, and I studied advertising. I was interested in broadcast journalism. They didn't offer that. And advertising really intrigued me because this idea of message strategy and like kind of just the realm of communications and persuasion and how the power of words and media and how it can influence people. So I studied advertising, got close to graduating, and I think seniors in college kind of go through a quarter-life crisis. What am I doing with my life? And you're just applying everywhere and trying to figure it out. And I thought I had my life all perfectly lined up. I had my perfect plans. I was going to take a job in marketing in Brooklyn. And then 2 weeks before graduation, a friend was like, hey, EWTN is starting this thing in Washington, D.C., EWTN News Nightly. You should apply. So I was looking into it. I'm like, this is perfect. I'm like, my love for broadcast journalism, my love for my Catholic faith and this network. So I applied and I got it, I graduated on a Saturday, brought all my stuff home on Sunday, got the job on Monday. So it was a whirlwind.
Yeah.
But it was a whirlwind, but it was also, I think, one of those moments where I felt such great peace and clarity, where it was, I think, probably one of those rare moments in life when I was like, okay, God wants me here. Like he was kind of nudging me, like, you know how you love EWTN? Well, here you go. And it is an honor.
And a whole nother new kind of phase to EWTN.
Yes.
I mean, you were pioneering, being a
Right.
missionary there, whether you knew it or not. And to see something being birthed in that way, of course, drawing off of all that we've learned over the years, but that's still a new place, new way, new powers.
Yes.
You were producing stuff there as well as reporting?
Yes, I was producing and reporting for EWTN News Nightly for about 3 years. And, working with the team, I really got to have my hands on a lot of different projects, and such a privilege to be there. Got to go to Rome for St. John Paul II's canonization. Got to go to
somebody had to go.
Yeah. So, got to go to the political conventions, the DNC and RNC this past summer. So incredible opportunities. And it really is exciting up in Washington, D.C. I mean, EWTN is just growing and growing. And I can just share, people know that EWTN is there, more so on Capitol Hill in the White House. Like the name is spreading, and I think, I just wonder if Mother Angelica would never know that would happen. So it's really cool.
Yeah. What's happening to members of the Catholic Church, maybe even the Christian tradition, to have, an evening news program, it makes it easy to come out of the shadows, kind of, doesn't it? And say, this is an encouragement. I prayed for this, and we want to contribute to this in some way. Or what's happening? What's it doing to the church?
I mean, exactly. I think the vision of News Nightly and being able to be a part of it is, here, we're going to speak truth. We really are. We don't have any other bias. Our bias is to be Catholic. We're not left, right, or one way or the other. And so I think that is just so refreshing. And in a day when there is, always debate and talking heads on all the other networks, how refreshing to tune to a station where you can just listen, and you don't have to be filtering out everything people are saying, but you can just listen and take it in. It really is a blessing, and just moving forward with the vision of EWTN into the future.
So now you're there, and then all of a sudden, what happened?
This new project popped up, EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, and I'm so thrilled, and once again, just grateful and honored and humbled. And I think this show came about unfortunately, because there's a need.
Right.
You know, there is such an attack on life and throughout the world, in culture, in policy, there is this need. And the show started being developed during the campaign when I think a lot of people were predicting we'd have President Clinton, where in fact, to a lot of people's surprise, no, it's President Trump. So the show is taking on a new role and really helping to hold our lawmakers accountable to their pro-life promises and to speak clearly as to what is going on when it comes to the pro-life issues.
Well, before we unpack more about the show, which we really want to hear about, why did this so resonate with you when you were given the opportunity? I mean, some people might say, well, you know, I want to go into a different area. I want to be more broad.
Right.
What was it about this opportunity in your own upbringing or your own connectivity with life or your family that you said, you know what, I feel like I may be made for this kind of thing?
I've had a lot of opportunity to sit back and kind of dwell on that because a lot of people have been asking me that question, and I think it's a natural question.
I thought I was the first one to ask you.
You're still original, though. But, you know, and so I've just been thinking about it, and I've never had like one just moment where I had a huge conversion. I've always been pro-life. I grew up in a pro-life home. And I think my views and my perspective on that have just really been cemented, especially when I look at my mother, because she has really lived out, I think, what it means to be pro-life. She had her first child, my older sister, when she was 19 in college, and it was, obviously that's a surprise, and she had my sister, and it was hard. You know, she had to work a lot of jobs. She put herself through college, didn't have much help, but she said yes to life, and today she's the CFO of an international company. So to see up close, here's a woman who said yes to life. Yes, it was hard. Yes, there were struggles, but she did it, and so can you.
And it wasn't the end of the story.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's what happens in our
Exactly.
culture. It's like, if you don't have an abortion, you know, you have to have an abortion because you have to get on with your college, or you have to,
Right.
and so you sacrifice the child for the sake of your college degree or that job offer that's out there, and really injure yourself
Right.
forever.
To take a violent act upon yourself. And how is that an empowering message to women? I think an empowering message is, you can do this. I believe in you, you know? And so
I wonder who was involved with her to encourage her. Did she just simply make the choice? Was anybody encouraging? Because, you know, there's like a statistic that, or some kind of survey that was taken, and the women who've had abortions have said, if there was one person who would encourage me to say just what you said, you know, you can do this, we're going to stand with you, this is hard. But, you know, abortion's hard too.
Yes.
Really hard.
Yes.
We'll stand with, they said, if I had one person, I think I would have gone the way of life.
I'm sure she maybe had some close friends, and I know my grandmother, who is watching and loves EWTN. My grandmother was a huge support to my mother, and I mean, my mom is the youngest of 10.
Right.
So I think when you're
Wow.
the youngest of 10, I think she was grateful that she was born. I know I'm grateful that she was, and that, you know, my grandmother kept saying yes to life in that way. So I think that must also kind of change your perspective to be grateful for that. So she's the youngest of 10, and so thankful for my grandmother for having her, thankful for my mother for saying yes to life too. But you're right, there are so many influences and ways that we are formed without even realizing, and a lot of it does come from the family.
So growing up, knowing your mom's story, your grandmother, commitment to life.
Yes.
And then I read something while you in college about, well, you went to the March for Life the first time.
So I went to Florida State University, which is obviously a big public university, but they have a great Catholic student union, which I am still so grateful for. And I got to go to the March for Life my freshman and my sophomore year. And of course, the thing that's powerful about that is the first time I'd gone, you're getting on a bus, you know, there's like 50 of you crammed in a bus, going up in the cold, being from Florida. January
cold.
weather in Washington, D.C. is not something we're used
brutal.
to. And it's funny, though. I remember that when okay, sure, I'll go to the March for Life. All my friends are going. This will be a fun kind of field trip. No, like, you're sacrificing a lot.
It is a
hard.
pilgrimage.
It truly is, and you can see it in the prayers. So then to have, when I'm busting up there, okay, this isn't so fun and field trip. This is a pilgrimage. And then to be surrounded by thousands and tens of thousands of young people who believe what you do. That is just so encouraging, and that really kind of, okay, so even in those moments where I feel like I'm alone, I'm not alone. That's a lie. And then also my freshman year at Florida State, the Catholic Student Union sponsored a talk by Dr. Alveda King. So, of course, outspoken pro-life advocate.
Niece of Martin Luther King and daughter of the only brother of Dr. King. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And she had had abortions in the past. And so she came and she was speaking about this and saying how she was lied and deceived. Oh, those are just a clump of cells. No, you're not killing a child. She came to learn the truth, and now she speaks so boldly about life. And I remember being in this big auditorium and hearing her and just feeling this chill of like, I need to be involved in this somehow. I hope to be involved in this somehow. And I didn't know what that would look like in the future, but I have a very distinct memory of that. And at the time, I was also involved with Florida State's college radio station. So, you know, just for students to run this radio station. And they started getting word that Dr. Alveda King was coming to campus. And at first there was this excitement.
Yeah,
you know?
good buzz about it all.
Yeah, it was, oh, wow,
Right.
Dr. Martin Luther King's niece is coming here. This is great. We'll have to do a story on it, da, da, da. Well, then a few days before she actually spoke, there was word, oh, here it's going to be a pro-life speech, you know, and so you could hear the tone change in the room. And at the time I probably 19, I think I was 19 years old, and I didn't speak up about it, and I should have. But at the time I'm surrounded by this room of people who are now feeling very negative about this talk, and I was just kind of observing and taking it in and just like, okay, even at this very local, basic level, a radio station at a college campus, you can see this kind of
The tension.
and misinformation and just, and how people may not be willing to speak so boldly about the truth of life in that situation even.
Yeah, and that's happening all over, in high schools, in colleges,
Right.
on job sites, in families, you know, where people are, you know, because there's a disagreement or maybe someone who is not so pro-life isn't as vocal as the other, and you just kind of shrink back, lest you be misunderstood or
Exactly.
misinterpreted, like, oh my gosh, they might think I'm a crazy pro-life
Right.
person. And, you know, and so that's always scary, and you're always caught off guard about how you respond, right?
And in a time and an age where you just want to fit in and be cool and have people like you, I think it's especially, it really is hard, you know, but to know that people are not alone in having those views, and it's good to speak up for that.
Well, tell us more now about the pro-life, EWTN Pro-Life Weekly.
Yes.
It's coming up in March, right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
March 3rd. But there was a show, there's been a show already.
Yeah, so we aired a special on January 20th during the week of the March for Life. Very fitting. It's a very pro-life packed week. So we premiered and really introduced to our viewers kind of the format of the program and what they can expect and come March. But Friday, March 3rd, we will be going weekly. In the first show, we were able to sit down with Carly Fiorina, former Republican presidential candidate, and kind of hear her pro-life views too. And so that's been great. But the show, there's a few different interesting segments to it. It'll start off each week looking at the latest in pro-life news. I mean, even for those of us who are really interested in pro-life information and work in this, it can be inundating. It can be overwhelming. It's hard to keep up with it all. So we'll begin each program with, this is what's going on, you know, in states, federally, internationally even. And we're working closely with the Susan B. Anthony list. And so we'll have Marjorie Dannenfelser on. She'll be a very frequent guest and familiar face to the program. She's the president of the Susan B. Anthony list to help us, okay, what do we make of this piece of legislation? What does this mean? You know, what should lawmakers be doing? What do we think of this as pro-lifers? We'll also have a call to action. Now, this is a very unique feature of the program, and I'll say this is probably what I hear about the most from the January special is I really liked that call to action.
Yeah.
But this is a unique, concrete way for our viewers to get involved in the pro-life movement.
Right.
You know, I think a lot of people are very motivated in being pro-life, and we have all this information, we know this truth, but what can I do about it?
Right.
At the March for Life just a few weeks ago, looking around at these, you know, highly motivated pro-life people taking the action to come to DC and march, that is just one example of a beautiful demonstration of getting involved. But there's something that we can be doing every single day, every single day. So for the first one, our first call to action was a petition to defund Planned Parenthood and send the signal that we want this to happen.
So then when you say petition, did you lead them someplace they could
We
sign
did,
up for it?
yes. So sba.org /defund PP was the URL we gave.
You see, people really want to do something, but it's kind of like,
Yes.
you take me that far, I don't know where to find that, I don't know what to do, but then you
Right.
can just do something. There's always more you can do, but to just sign up, to identify with people, to say, you know, I'm making my voice heard, and you lead them right to it. I think people really want to do something. It's kind of like, I got to dig and find and so on. It's difficult.
And you get to feed it. And it's like, oh, forget it. I'll just stay home and pray. And
Which is
that's,
good.
which is very important. But if we can get and be active, that's a good thing to do.
Exactly, to take that action. And once again, there is this kind of, I think, restlessness, but we can make a difference, even at a local level. That's where a lot of it starts too, at the grassroots.
It's that saying, all politics is local.
Right.
And there is a lot to be done. But I want to ask you, you're unpacking things wonderfully.
Right.
When you say you gather information about the latest in pro-life, what's happening,
Right.
what segments of the pro-life movement do you take in? Is it just simply the preborn, that would be enough, but what are you touching on in terms of pro-life issues?
So being Catholic, we have this very holistic perspective of what it means to be pro-life. And I will say that abortion and assisted suicide will be the focus of the program. I mean, they are prioritized. Our unborn, our preborn are the most vulnerable. So we'll be really focusing on them. But it is far-reaching, and of course we'll be looking at bioethics.
Right.
There are bioethical concerns. We'll be looking at, ways to help people with special disabilities, the homeless, the elderly, so many, anyone who's marginalized. We as Catholics, we care about them. And, the reason that we are pro-life is because that person on that street has dignity just as that unborn child does. And we're going to speak up for everyone. But, of course, the unborn are the most vulnerable.
So you've got pro-life issues, especially beginning of life, end of life.
Yes.
These are particularly weighty because
Right.
these people are targeted.
Yep.
So there's life issues across the board in terms of education, in terms of the poor, in terms of feeding people.
Yeah.
But only these groups and those with disabilities now possibly, people are aiming to kill them. And so that's why there's a sense of urgency. This is
Right.
waiting to do
Absolutely.
it. So you've got that, you've got action, and then what are the other segments?
So we'll also have a panel of pro-life experts, which I'm really excited about this. We'll have the time to really unpack some confusing questions that people have. We'll have 2 to 3 guests each time, and we'll pick a topic and let's talk about this. Because just like we were just saying, sometimes people, it's scary to talk about it. It's scary to bring up and speak up and say, actually, this is the truth. But we're going to take these myths that have been perpetuated by the abortion industry and by the assisted suicide lobbyists and untangle why they are lies. And my hope and goal for that is that people do feel more confident in hearing it. They're able to wrap their head around these facts. They can feel more confident, and then they can go and speak about these issues and encounter the culture and dialogue with their neighbor. So that'll be the first part of the program. And then the second part, we have a speak out segment, which is where we'll look at media, we'll look at culture. There's really no other way to say this, but we'll speak out how it reflects the culture of death.
Right.
So in the first program, in the January special.
Let's just pause there
Yeah.
because there's so much.
There's so much.
And we'll be back with Catherine Zeltner, host of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Debuts March 3rd. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Plenty more to come. And we want to hear from you. Catherine, you were kind of telling us the components of the
Right.
show, Pro-Life Weekly. You're speaking about gathering information from all over the world. What's happening? Action.
Yeah.
What's the third one?
The expert panel discussion.
Expert panel. But then you
Yes.
get to the second part.
Yes. So then the second half of the show is our speak out segment, which is where we will speak out against the culture of death in today's world and how we see that in the media and classrooms or what have you. And one example we gave in our January special was Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's the star and creator of the Hamilton
Right.
Broadway.
Right,
His
right.
mother recently joined the board of Planned Parenthood and wrote an op-ed in Vogue magazine and saying how if you care about children, you will care, you will support Planned Parenthood, and
Wow.
you can go, if you donate this money to Planned Parenthood, you can get a ticket to Hamilton. So just really showing how the abortion lobby and Planned Parenthood is really trying to channel celebrity to try and make abortion cool and almost like this badge of honor for people. But, so speaking out against examples like this that we see and explaining why they're wrong. But then finally ending on a really uplifting and hopeful note, a pro-life focused segment where we'll spotlight whether it's a person, a group, or an initiative that is building up the culture of life, because there is a lot of good that is
Right.
happening,
Absolutely.
and we want to spotlight them. So
Yeah, I think of this show, EWTN pro-life weekly. Joy and I, as I shared on another show, we went to defund Planned Parenthood gatherings with like 200 cities, and I had a few minutes to speak to people. And one of the challenges I gave to them was, if there is a pro-life family group in your parish or in the church, join that, gather as much information as you can, make it available to people. And so many, both in the Christian community and the Catholic community, may not have a center, a cell.
Right.
Your show would be a part, in my view, of saying, this show is on weekly. They're going to tell you what's going on all over the place, what you can do locally. You should see it each week. You can make it available to people in your parish, right? Tell them when it's on, email them, put it up on Facebook, or just use their resources. And so I think your show, the show, EWTN show, can really be used as a resource, not only for individuals, but for those parish and family groups in the parish, in churches, or to begin something. Because people are like, I'd like to start something to keep people aware, but where am I going to get all this information? I mean, they could go right there and then disseminate it.
That's my hope and goal. And I mean, there's really no other program like this. There's no other television program dedicated, to this issue in this capacity that will have this weekly information. So that's really the hope and goal. And you both know just the impact local movement can have in that one-to-one encounter, you know?
Well, we're going to go straight to the phone because we have Jeff. Jeff, welcome to At Home with Jim and Joy. Your question or your comment for Catherine?
Oh, sure. Just thank you very much. I really enjoyed the show with you and Jeff Calvin's that you talked about cancer. I thought that was amazing. My question for Catherine is, my nephew and his girlfriend, we were out for dinner, and we started to talk about pro-life, and she was pro-choice. Right. And I didn't realize when I was talking to her at the time that she had an abortion, and I was wondering, I tried to bring up how it doesn't empower, abortion doesn't empower women, it hurts them. Yeah. And I think I might have hurt her in the process. So I would really like to know how to talk to my nephew's girlfriend that, that even though she doesn't have the same beliefs that we do, that, that we still love her, but we believe in life, and that this hurts women,
Yeah. Jeff, thank you so much.
I think Jeff brings up the excellent point that there are so many women hurting, and there are so many victims, and so many women who have been deceived into thinking that they need to opt for an abortion, and it's a good reminder why. And it sounds like Jeff probably did that too, is anytime you're speaking about this, speak with love and mercy and understanding, and never assuming anything of anyone. But because this is, as you all were saying in the beginning, let's convert people by love and show them with open arms how they are always welcome, and they should never live or walk in shame, but to always speak with love and mercy and compassion. And I think that will be what converts people and what changes people. And the thing is, we do have the truth, and with that, there's underlying peace. And that should be translated in our conversations. So I think with Jeff's example and speaking again with that young woman, I think just you can show love by being that continuous smiling face and just making it clear that you are not judging and you're always there to speak about those things and always there to point her to those resources. But that would be my response.
Right. Well, and one thing we can assume, that all of us in this whole United States have been affected by abortion. We've all been affected.
Yes.
And so family members, cousins, aunts, uncles, people have been affected. We have people missing from our families.
Yes.
So always when we approach, and you could become self-righteous, but that's not going to win a heart. Even if you're right, if your way of speaking isn't kind and loving and merciful, you've injured again. And so it's always to be just say, when you have that conversation, assume that everyone's been affected because they have.
Yeah, you're right. And to think before we speak, prudence, right? 58, 59 million abortions. Wow. It's not just the women, it's the fathers. It's siblings, it's so everybody's been impacted. And I forget sometimes, so I just make a strong case, against abortion, but here's a woman that's, and so I think if that gets revealed by that person, and again, how does she reveal this? Is she really angry? I would say then, I'm sorry for your loss.
Yes.
So we can always say that, even if it's abortion, it'd be like, well, how could you do that? And your baby was going, I'm sorry for your loss, that must have been very difficult. Now she might say, well, it really wasn't. Or some might say it was. And then to know some resources like Rachel Vineyard Retreat weekends. They have, weekends for girls. She might not want that, but they can be in dialogue with others that have had abortion. Or that person might say, I didn't think it was that bad. So you say, what? There are women who really do feel that way. So I'm not telling you that to take that position right now, but you might want to dialogue with them and say, you know,
Yes.
go there.
And even say, I mean, the point you made about acknowledging, I am sorry for your loss, they may not have heard that from anyone else, and they may have needed to hear that. And then even to say, you know, if you feel okay now, that's, but often women who get an abortion, maybe down the line, you'll
There's
start to have
resources for
different
you.
Right.
feelings.
Right.
At that point them to that.
Right. Okay, we're going to go straight to an email. It says, most of my friends are either solidly pro-life or pro-abortion. Discussions with my friends on abortion usually end up in heated arguments. How can we talk to pro-aborts when so many seem to be so closed-minded? And this is Andy from Avon Lake, Ohio.
Thanks, Andy.
I think I agree. I think that's most people's experiences too. It's this it's probably the most divisive topic you could have. So, and people feel passionate about it. And I also think the best way, I think one argument that is just very powerful is just kind of asking questions. How is abortion being pro-woman? Shouldn't we support the woman, and shouldn't we support her, you know,
Right.
in that, you know, case, and just kind of probing how is that the most for her to take on violence upon her own body, or with contraceptives, you know, as well. How is that pro-woman for a woman to change how her body naturally works? No, she's transforming her body to act like a man's. That's not empowering. So I think just kind of probing in that way and asking questions, but just like we were saying, always maintaining that sense of peace and calm. And I think with friends, because I certainly have close friends who we very much disagree on this, but because we know each other,
Right.
and I know that person, and I love that person,
Right.
there's some hope there.
Right. And as it's not only a discussion about the issue of abortion and the unborn. I like that phrase, we can love them both.
Yes.
Can't we love them both?
Right.
But the other thing is that I have to be pro-life in this encounter. And especially for somebody that's taking an opposite position, somehow I want to get them the message, even if I have to say that. I respect your dignity, your worth, your value, because you take a position that's opposite, and that I think could even be a violent position here. You're sacred. And I respect you as a human being and as a person. And then they start getting that message, you know, it kind of diffuses a lot of things and saying, I'm not trying to attack you, just in case we're trying to discuss this. I think the other phraseology that I find helpful, which came from my time with Priests for Life, is what do you mean when you say abortion? Maybe we don't even have to go any further than that or talk about laws, what happens. Please tell me what you mean when you say, well, I mean choice. No, but the medical scientific procedure called abortion, what does that mean for 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 20 weeks? You know, abortion through all 9 months. What does it mean? And please tell me. And then be able to present to them, would you like to know what abortion is at each of these stages, what doctors say who do them, sworn under oath, and is this what you mean when you say abortion? And we've done that with Alveda King.
Wow.
We went to Senator Obama's office, Senator Clinton's office, John McCain's office with Alveda.
Wow.
Picture of her uncle was usually up Martin Luther King, so we go in with Alveda. And they say, I'm Alveda King. Oh, you got my uncle up there. Yeah, well, what are you doing here, Alveda? You know, I just came to ask you one question. What's the question? When you say abortion, what do you mean? We're not here for legislation. We're not here to argue. We're just, because we can't even have a conversation if we don't clarify the term. But you have to be ready to say what abortion is and what abortion does to that baby and to that woman.
How do you define life? And I mean, I think a lot of people, they're gray on that area. You know, we know at conception, life begins. But I think for a lot of people, there is a lot of gray, and, you know, with partial birth abortion, how is that okay? But you just kind of, I think,
but you're asking questions is really, really key. What do you see going on in the pro-life movement? You know, the battle rages for life and for death, but you say, you know, there's encouragement that's there. How do you see things at this time?
I do see a lot of hope and optimism. I mean, the March for Life is still fresh in my mind, and I feel like those are the overreaching themes, hope and optimism. We are in a new administration. We're 1 month in a new administration, and while our president is certainly a convert to the cause, there is a lot of reason to hold on to hope. I mean, Donald Trump made the unprecedented move of laying out 4 pro-life promises when he was a candidate back in September. No one has ever done that, but he clearly laid out what he promises to do if he is elected president. And 1 month in, he's really been kind of following through. First, I mean, his first week in office, he signed the Mexico City policy, and one of his pro-life promises was to nominate a pro-life justice to the Supreme Court. Neil Gorsuch.
Right.
He's done that. So while we're still very early on, I think there is optimism and there is hope.
Right.
But of course, with this program with EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, we do have those promises he laid out so we can hold him accountable to those things. And other pro-life lawmakers, and really follow and track to see, okay, are you doing what you said you would do?
Right.
And being that voice that will never get sick and tired of saying, wait a minute, what about being pro-life?
Well, and I think great hope with your show is, we the people elected him.
Right.
So now it's we the people who have to do the work to make sure that all those things get done in the Senate, in the House, on the Supreme Court. He's just one man, but it comes back to we the people. We the people, one day, we don't die and stand before the Lord and say, oh, I was a United States citizen. No, you stand in your own body, in your own spirit, and you have to give account to what you did and did not do.
Yes.
And so that's where you have to say, I have to be empowered. I can't. I lived, Bush was my president, Clinton was my president, Reagan was my president, and you know what we did as a nation? We still killed over 4,000 babies every single day.
Yeah.
So I got a mandate from God. I'm to defend the culture of life. Me, you, and we all got to do our job.
And it really, the culture impacts policy, but there is this relationship there. And so to think that culture doesn't make a difference, oh, it does. That local level, oh, it does. And
culture's huge.
Yeah.
So we have to win the hearts and minds of people. Like Norman McCorvey was won over, won over by love.
Exactly.
Yet, as Martin Luther King said, they said to him, you're a minister, why are you involved in wanting to change laws? Because he said, because laws will stop some people from lynching my people.
Wow.
That's why I do that. So if I can't reason with you, there should be laws that say you can't kill human beings here, you can't kill the disabled, you don't kill the elderly. We help people.
It really goes back to, we don't want to make abortion just illegal. We want to make it unthinkable.
Right.
And we have to strive
And that's
for that.
revival and renewal.
Yes.
Okay, we have another email. It says, I'm in high school, and I really enjoy your show. Most of my friends are pro-life, but they really don't know much about abortion. They are very surprised when I describe what exactly an abortion does, or that it's legal through all 9 months of a pregnancy. How can we better teach the facts about abortion before young people are swayed by all the false information that is out there? And this is Madison from Watkinsville, Georgia.
Well, hello, Madison. Well, that is, her knowledge of the pro-life movement, that is incredible at such a young age. So I just want to say, please keep it up. Please keep up those conversations. And especially as you continue to grow and go into college and grow into those campuses, I think, educate yourself, look at resources. Even EWTN.com/pro-life. Always want to point people there. The Susan B. Anthony List's website is great, sba-list.org, to stay up on legislation. But Live Action, and I know you've all had Lila Rose on as well, their videos are also very educational.
And we had David Daleiden.
Yes, of Center for Medical Progress, that really show this is what's happening, and this is the procedure, and this is what's legal.
Yeah, that was excellent. And had somebody recently say, well, when do you start speaking with your children about abortion? I think, so I said to them, the real issue is when do you start speaking to them about fetal development? And you can start that so early. And our children and grandchildren were always walking around with little 8-week-old models in their hands and seeing
They come
the
to
babies.
Mass and they show me your babies.
And
No,
fetal
no.
because if they
They're
get,
in the drawers. They're everywhere.
if they get fetal development and they come to understand that sometimes these babies are killed, then they could just put it in there. Well, how would you kill something like that? But children really are inquisitive, even beginning at 9, 10, 11, 12. And when we have kids getting ready for confirmation to come, they come to our center, we share with them. And they do begin to ask, how is this done? How does it take place? And you got to decide as a parent what you want to do, but they're really able to cope. I mean, they're going to hear it, and other people will be coming up to them and saying, there's something called abortion, and it's not a bad thing,
and
it's
want
not
to be
really
the
a
first
human
voice.
being. Anyway.
That's right.
You want to be the influential voice.
Right.
You want to be the first voice there.
And that's what your show can help them do, because it is the domestic church's responsibility to educate and to form and to mold those minds and hearts and to be pro-life. But then they could watch your show as a family and say, okay, this is what we can do. Do we have a pro-life group in our church? Do we have a pro-life, on a diocesan level? What are we doing? And then stop looking around thinking it's going to be somebody else. It's like, here I am, Lord, use me.
And we all do have a responsibility. Once you are made aware of something, you have a responsibility to carry on that truth and to share others. You can't just sit back with this kind of information. You have to be active and do something.
When we have those young people, we have so many young people here today, so I'm really inspired, and I hope they're
Yes.
really listening.
Yes.
And they came to our center, some of them.
But you know, it's
That's
not enough
wonderful.
just to say and to inform and to say what this is, because these young people fall into despair.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to say, here's the action steps, here's what we can
Right.
do, here's mercy and here's forgiveness.
Yes.
We can tell you numerous people that were on this side of it and have come over once they've learned about this. We can tell you that some of the best advocates for life are people who've had abortions,
Right.
or who have paid for abortions, or who did abortions. Not that we say you should do that, but those who are forgiven much, love much. And that's part of this whole movement, is mercy, grace, and
Absolutely.
forgiveness. And some of the best witnesses are people who've really been closely involved, that speak in mercy and speak in humility and speak in, you know, just from their experience.
Which I think debunks another misconception of the pro-life
Right.
movement. Oh, they're judgmental. They'll judge
Right.
me.
Right.
Not at all. Open arms of love.
And look
That's
how
their
God has
mission.
used Abby Johnson.
That's what I was
Right?
just thinking when you're describing this as well. What an inconvenient person she is for the abortion lobbyist, because
Right.
she knows so much and she's speaking boldly. Absolutely. And is a convert to Catholicism as well, which
Right.
is also very beautiful.
So what's another myth, do you think?
I think another
our
myth
government?
is kind of something that we hit on, is that to be against abortion is to be anti-woman. That's a lot of what you hear, especially now as we're having more calls to defund Planned Parenthood. What about women's health care? What about that? Listen, for every one Planned Parenthood, there's 20 community health centers.
Right,
You know,
right.
Like, that is a myth that women's health care will go down the drain without
Because they're
Planned
not
Parenthood.
getting women's health care at a Planned
No,
Parenthood.
they're not even addressing top women's health concerns.
No.
I mean, most women die from heart disease.
Right.
Planned Parenthood doesn't treat that.
Right.
They only look at, one specific area. And as Live Action and other groups have recently been showing as well, not prenatal care. They only do sonograms if they're about to
Only if you're
perform.
going to have an abortion.
Exactly.
You can't go there to find out the sex of your baby. They
Yes.
don't provide that service.
Right. So, I mean, that is a huge myth, that to be against abortion is to be against women. Quite
Right.
the opposite.
Pause there. Catherine Zeltner is here with us, host of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, dispelling the myths and bringing the dignity of the human person to the world. We'll be right back.